Hey friends and everyone, welcome back to Netcode-Hub channel. I am Frederick and I'm happy to have you here today. In this video, we are going to look at how to configure standard API with controllers and minimal APIs without controllers in .NET 8 Blazor application. What we are going to do here cuts across all the interactive render modes, talking about the server, WebAssembly, and also the auto. In .NET 8 Blazor application, you can expose your endpoint, so you can consume it or you can call it as a service. Before you can expose your endpoint, you must have controller included. Now, we can decide to skip using controller and now use minimal API. So it's your choice to make. If you don't know what minimal API is, or if you don't know how to integrate, or if you don't know a lot about minimal API, I've made a separate video concerning from start to finish, from scratch to advanced of minimal API, and I'll put a link in this video description so you can just go in there and I'll have a look. Minimal API has no controller. The code is minimal, while standard API has controller in it. And as you know, when you compare the code between standard and minimal, standard has a lot, minimal has less code. So I have a Blazor project created in here. It's just simple authentication to authenticate user. That is in .NET 8 Blazor. Now you want to configure, you want to add a support of API endpoints. So you first want to tackle the standard API, that is where we include controllers. And when we are done, we also tackle how to include minimal API. So now if I run this project and I navigate to the Swagger, we have only the Swagger UI installed. There is no endpoint available. Let's have a look. That's right. So you can see that we have the endpoint, the Swagger UI here, because you've added Swagger. And maybe if you don't know how to add Swagger, you can just install the Swagger package. And now this package, the name of this package here, if I go to dependencies and I go to packages, you have to install /backhaul.asp netcore. So that is the package that you need to install. After that, you go to the program.cs file, you register the service, and add a middleware pipeline. So you go to program.cs, and that is this. And in here, you add the Swagger gen, you add the service, and also you add Swagger app.uswagger and app.uswagger UI. So when you run the code, you're going to have something like this. Now there's no operation defined at this area. So let's first have a look on how to include controller to this. Now first of all, we have to add service, controller service. So we say builder.services .add controllers. Second step here is to map the controller. So you say app.map controllers. We are done. Now go to the project, that is the server project. We're going to create a folder in here and I'll name it as controllers. So create a folder and I'll name this folder as controllers. Let's make sure we do not run this. And now we can go ahead and I'll start our controller. So let's create a new controller in here. And we're going to choose an API and maybe empty one. And here we're going to give it a name. Let me say account, because since you have an authentication, definitely going to have an account authentication controller. So in this case, we want to say account. We have a controller created. Now I learned when you get to this side, you can continue on, isn't it? But let's see, I have a service already created. So we're going to inject the service in here and we're going to start using this. Okay. So this is what I'm going to do. You're going to use primary constructor introduced in C# version 12. So instead of creating constructor in here, we're going to inject into here to make it available from the whole scope. So we have iAccount, and that is the instance that we are creating. Now the first endpoint that I need here, it is register. So I'm going to register. And now with this, you know, it's an HTTP post. Register as a normal control that you do create in Web API. So we have the same, and here I have the DTO coming in as register DTO. And then I'm calling the service, and I return the results as OK status code. Okay, now we can just go to the login as well, and in here we can also assign or create the login, and it is the same. So I have the same thing in here. As you can see, I call the login async, passing the model, and now I'm going to log in, and maybe we can add weather forecast. So we have this endpoint, and it's also HTTP GET, and it is authorized. So here we just need a weather forecast. Forget about this authorized. We are not into that, okay? We are into just an API endpoint. Okay, so here is a default one, and you return OK with the list of the weather forecast. This is very simple. 3 steps involved. The first thing is to add a service. Second is to map the pipeline. Third one is to create your folder. The last one is to create your controller and start filling in the codes. Very simple. Yes. So we are done here. We are going to run this, and that's all that we need to do. And boom, we are done. Let's try this and see. Oh, I told you. Yes, we have it. So we have our endpoint. As you can see, we have a register endpoint. We have also login endpoint. So maybe I can try this and log in and see what I'm going to have my token. And maybe this is going to work. Yes, so this is working. So you can see that here we've been able to introduce this standard API. Okay, that is the traditional one. All right, now we have this. We're also going to teach you how to include minimal API. If you don't want to create controller folder and be creating this class and doing a whole lot of stuff in here, you want to make it a minimal, small one, okay, less code. Then how are you going to do it? That is the reason why minimal API was introduced. So let's have a look on how to do that. Now, in order to disconnect this, we are not going to delete this. I'm going to leave it there for you, okay? Then what I'm going to do here is comment the pipeline and also come to the service and I give it a comment. Yes. Now, if I save this and I run it again, it's still going to be in the 0.0, okay? You're not going to have the API endpoint because the service has been deactivated and it is not in the mode to respond to our request. Let's have a look. That's right, I said it, isn't it? So we have a no operation defined in spec. So we're going to add our minimal API. Alright, so we're going to create a folder in here and I'll call it as minimal API. As usual, maybe you can give it any name of your choice. Even your name is, you can make it. Okay, so this is minimal API. Now this minimal API, we need to create a class. And now this class has to return endpoint convention builder. It's an interface, so we need to return this, and we need to specify make an explicit payload to run this endpoint by using this endpoint route builder. Okay, so this is what we need to pass into this method, and now we are making an explicit to this method, and we can create our group and try to use the map post, map get, map delete, and all the maps. Okay, so let's see. First we need to create a class in here, and now this class is going to be, I'm going to name it as account endpoint route builder. So there's the name of my class. You can give it any name of your choice. Now with this, we have to have another class in here, and now this class has to return our endpoint convention builder, and now the name is map endpoint. Okay, this must be an internal static. Okay, So now once we have this one, we're going to have the body section. So we first need to create a group. Now group is the account, so the same thing as comparing to the account controller. Like you see, we have the file itself, and now the name is what? Account controller. When making a reference, you say account but not controller. You don't add a controller because this is a naming convention, isn't it? The same thing applies to this. Now we need to create a naming in here. That's a file name, and here we are saying an account. So when you're creating any endpoint, it's going to be account as a controller. Then you're going to have the endpoint. You can decide to make here API/account, okay? But for now, let's maintain this as account. Now we need to create an endpoint to register, and let's code for this. Since it's minimal, we try our best to make it minimal as well. So 2 lines of code is going to kill this down. So you can see account group.map post. So this is making a post, and now since it's an asynchronous, we can see we have to add the async in here. This is the payload that we need to pass in as a register DTO, and now we need to also inject this account repo. That is a service that we've created, and now in that we call account repo the register async. So instead of returning OK, here we say result.OK. The result has a lot of other status code, so you can find any of your choice in there. Okay, so you are returning results.OK. There are a lot of things that you can add in here, like allow anonymous when using authentication, and also you can have with name produces a lot, but for now this is going to work. So that is the simplest way to actually include minimal API, and this is still going to work. So trust me, you try our best to make it simple for you. Okay, yeah, so that's for register, and we do the same for login. I believe as for that one, you can do it yourself, isn't it? So that's a login, 2 lines, the same thing, change it to login. And so the route is going to be account/register, account/login. This is a payload that we're receiving. We injected this interface, then we can now call the endpoint in that interface. Okay, let's also create one for this account weather forecast as we created. So as for that one, the same thing that we're doing. So here we have our start date, and there's a date. We have our summaries. I just copied this from the the default one that gets created anytime that you create a new project. Okay, so I did not do this myself, I just copied. Yes, so I think you've seen this before and you know what it's talking about, isn't it? So here what we're focusing here is the account group.map get. So this is get because you're going to retrieve everything. It's a list, and now here it has no payload. And now saying this is not asynchronous, that's why I did not add async in here, else I would have added it. Then you're going to return OK as status code. We get the range, and now set the whole thing, convert to array, and now return. At the end of the day, the account group that we created as an endpoint in here, we need to return this account group. The next thing that to do here is, this involves 2 steps. Create the class of this endpoint, and the second one is a map this endpoint. Very simple one, then you're done. So let's go to the program.cs file. Now here, instead of the pipeline in here, mapping controller, you're going to map app dot. So account endpoint, you can see we have it in here. And that is all. Minimal is always minimal. Yes. Okay, let's save this. Now let's run this and check it out. Okay, so this is also ready. And I can see we have the endpoint as well. Let's try to log in this and see if this also working as the standard endpoint did. Now let's see. Yes, it did. So that is it. Now you've seen how to configure minimal API and also standard or traditional API with controllers. Yeah, so you can choose any of them and now use it in your application. That is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm going to catch up again. Till then, take care.